Welcome to Excel Part 1 at the Ela Area Public Library. This is an abridged version of the class that we normally have on site. While the library is currently closed due to the coronavirus, you may still access our computer class handouts online at eapl.org. Then from the links on the left side of the home page, we will select Research, then Reference Department at Home, and then Computer Class Handouts. Next, from the links at the top of the page, we will select Excel, roughly in the middle of those links. And then at the very top, you'll see it reads Microsoft Excel 1. Click the download link on the right, and that will pull up our class handout. We will cover the 2013 version of Excel because that is the version we have installed at the public computers at the library. However, even if you have a later version, such as 2016, you will still find this class to be useful. The recorded version of this class will roughly follow the handout. However, since it is an abridged version, we will not cover everything on the handout. So keep in mind there will be additional information on the handout. Before we begin, let's look at the various components of the Excel program. An Excel document is called a workbook. The main portion of the document, as you can see here, consists of grid lines or boxes. Each box is referred to as a cell. Cells are organized by alphabetical columns, as you can see here, and numerical rows. In addition, you may notice that one of the cells has a green outline. That is known as the active cell. The active cell is the cell in which you will add text or formulas. Directly above the cells are two boxes, a small one on the upper left and a larger one towards the center right. The one on the left is called the name box. The name box tells you what your active cell is. For example, this one reads A1, so that corresponds to the active cell in column A, row 1. If I change the cell, for example, if I click the cell in column C, row 3, the name box will change accordingly. The large box in the center right is called the formula bar. The formula bar will reflect the contents of an active cell. If that cell should contain a formula, then that formula will display in the bar here, while the result of the formula will display in the cell. Above the name box and formula bar is the ribbon. That's that long bar at the very top of the program. Notice all of these icons on the ribbon. All of the icons are commands that you can do in Excel. For example, B will make your text bold. Commands are organized into groups. For example, bold is part of the font group, and further organized into tabs. If you notice, all the all caps words on the top are various tabs. But let's go back to the Home tab because we'll be using that most often. At the very top of your document, you'll find the document's name. This one is called Book 1. That is the default name given to it by the Excel program because we have not given it a name yet. We are going to rename the document shortly. Now let's add some text into cell A1. So we're going to click on that cell, and here we're going to type the full name of the library, Ela Area Public Library, and then hit enter. You'll notice that the text is too wide for its cell. In particular, column A is too narrow. As a result, we may wish to adjust the width of column A. There are two ways to do so. The first is manually. So we're going to move our cursor directly between the A and the B until it changes into that symbol. It looks like a cross with a double-sided arrow. When you get that symbol, you want to click and hold and then drag out the width of the column until it's wide enough to fit your text. The other way to adjust the width of the column is to auto-format. First, we want to undo our previous action. The undo button is this curved arrow at the upper left of the program. So we'll click that once, and now column A is the width that it was before. This time, we want to put our cursor back between A and B. We're going to get that same symbol, but instead of holding and dragging, we're going to double click. And in so doing, that will automatically adjust the width of the column to best fit the text. To navigate the various cells of your document, I prefer just to use the mouse, and then I simply click whichever cell I want to use. However, if you prefer to use the keyboard, you can do that as well. Every time you hit enter, you move down a cell. If you hit shift and then enter, and you need to hold down the shift key while doing so, you will move up a cell. If you hit the tab key, you will move one cell to the right. If you hit shift and tab, you will then move one cell to the left. It's easy to copy and paste cells in Excel. Let's first click cell D1 and we'll type the number 1, followed by enter. Then 2 followed by enter, and then 3 followed by enter. Now we want to copy all 3 cells. So we're going to click within cell D1 first. We're going to click and hold right in the middle of that cell and drag down through to cell D3. Then we're going to go up to the ribbon. The copy command is here in the Home tab on the upper left. So we're going to click copy. Now you should see a rotating line around the highlighted cells that is also known as a dancing marquee, which tells you that those cells are copied. Let's now click in cell F1. We're going to go back up to the ribbon, and this time we're going to click paste. And now you'll see that all 3 cells have pasted, starting at cell F1. As long as we have the dancing marquee here, we can continue to copy elsewhere. Now let's click cell E6 and click paste again. And now we've copied those 3 cells here. When you are finished copying and wish to remove the dancing marquee, simply move your cursor to any available blank cell and then double click, and that will remove the dancing marquee copy feature. The next thing we want to do before we save our document is to remove the numbers that we just added. We could hit undo a number of times until we go back to where we were prior to starting. However, I find it's easier just to highlight all the cells that contain a number like so. Let's try it again. All the cells that contain a number, and then hit the delete key on your keyboard. Before we proceed to the next part, let's save our document. So to save a document, we need to go to the green File tab here in the upper left. This will bring up a menu on the left-hand side. The first time you save a document, you want to choose the Save As option. After you click Save As, you have these options here in the middle column, and here we want to save it on our computer. So now we'll move here to the column on the right, And to keep it simple, we're going to save it on our desktop. Before we click Save in the pop-up box, we want to change the name of our document here. So if you look up here where it says File Name, the default name of Book 1 is listed. You'll notice it's also highlighted blue. So when you see that, you can type text directly over it. So we're going to rename this to My Budget. So let's type My Budget and then select Save in the lower right. And then if you look at the top of the document, you'll notice that the name of the file is now My Budget. We're now going to create a simple budget table. To begin, let's click cell C2 and we're going to type budget. Then let's go down here to cell C5 and we're going to type categories. And then let's move down 2 more cells and our categories will be groceries first. Then the next cell we'll type mortgage and then entertainment. Entertainment. And then enter. And don't worry about the column width for now, we can adjust that later. Our budget is going to cover a 6-month period, and the months are going to go into row 5, starting at cell E5. So let's type the abbreviation for January, JAN. Then if we wanted to, we could type the next 5 months in the next 5 cells. But instead, we're going to use a feature called the fill handle. So we want to make sure that cell E5 is our active cell. And you'll notice in the lower right, there's a small square that's a little bit separate from the rest of the green outline. The square is the fill handle. So what we want to do next is put our cursor directly on the square until it changes into a narrow plus sign. Then we're going to click and hold, like so, and then drag it out through the next 5 cells, and then let go. You'll see that Excel has now auto-filled in the next 5 months. While the fill handle doesn't work perfectly in every situation, you'll find that it can serve as an excellent time saver in many ways. Let's try the fill handle again. Let's click cell E8, which corresponds with mortgage. And we're going to type 1,000. The mortgage will be the same every month, but instead of typing it every month, we're going to use the fill handle and drag out through June, and then that will fill in the amount for each month. Now we're going to fill in the amounts for groceries and entertainment. Unfortunately, the amounts are all different, so the fill handle will not work here. So we'll have to do each one individually. So groceries for January is 200. 230 is the next one. 180 in March. 150 in April. 200 for May, and then 150 in June. So now we'll go to January entertainment. The amount there is 5,000. February is 150. March will be 170. April 200. May is 100, and then June we will give it the amount of 280. And now we have all of our amounts filled in. The next thing we're going to do is to add a comment to one of our cells. You may notice the January entertainment total is much higher than all of the other cells. If we're submitting this at work, or even if we want to keep it for our own records, we may want to add a comment here to explain why. So to do so, we're going to switch from the Home tab to the Review tab. and then you'll notice there's a new comment command on the top. So we're going to click that. In so doing, it brings up this blue-gray box. It sort of resembles a post-it note. Within this box, we can type the reason for the amount. Let's suppose we took a business trip to New York City that January. Now, if we click a blank cell away from the comment, it will seem to disappear. However, the comment is still there, and if you look back at cell E9, you'll see a small red triangle in the upper right of the cell. Whenever you see that, you know that the cell contains a comment. So to access it, you just simply move your cursor on top of the cell, and your comment will appear. If you wish to remove the comment, you're going to need to activate the cell. Then you can click delete at the top, or if you wish to edit it, you can do so here as well. However, we're going to keep our comment. The next step we're going to take is to use the AutoSum command to compute the subtotals of our rows and columns. First, let's go back to the Home tab, and then in cell K5, we're going to type category total, and then let's go to cell C11, and we're going to type monthly total, like so. From here, let us click cell K7 to make it active. Here we're going to total all the groceries from the month of January through June. To do so, we go up to the upper right of the ribbon to the AutoSum command. We're going to double click AutoSum, and that gives us our total here in cell K7. Then if you look up here by the formula bar, you'll see the formula that was used to get that amount. Rather than using the AutoSum command wherever there's a category or a monthly total, we're going to use the fill handle and drag from cell K7 through to K9. And that adds the AutoSum for mortgage and entertainment. Now let's go to cell E11 for the January monthly total. Here we will double click AutoSum, and then we'll use the fill handle again to go through the next 5 months, like so. If you know the formula, you can also type it from scratch. So let's click cell K11, and then in the formula bar at the top, we're going to type the formula, beginning with equal. All formulas in Excel start with equal. Then sum, open parenthesis, and we're going to do the sum of cells K7, colon, through K9, and then close parenthesis, and then we'll hit enter. And that should give us a total of 13,010. Let's take a break from formulas so that we can make some formatting changes to our budget table. First of all, let's adjust the width of column C with the auto format, like so, and we'll do the same thing with column K. The next thing we're going to do is to make all the text in our budget table bold. The easiest way to do this, as opposed to clicking each cell individually, is to click column C, which contains all of our categories, and then click B for bold in the ribbon. Then we want to click row 5 and do the same thing. And now all of the text in our budget table is bold. Now let's click cell C2, which contains the word budget, and here we're going to change the font size. Right now it's at 11, so let's go up here for font size. We're going to click the arrow and change that to 14. Furthermore, if we wanted to, we could change the font style. For example, here's Algerian, but I'm going to undo and we'll keep the font style as it is for now. The next thing we're going to do is to format the numbers on our budget table. So first we need to highlight all of the numbers starting with cell E7. We're going to click and hold and then drag down to cell K11. Now let's examine the number group up here in the middle of the ribbon. The first command we're going to look at is this comma, the comma style command. Let's click that once, and now look at how the numbers have changed. It adds a comma where appropriate, and in addition to that, we have 2 decimal places. Let's now look at the accounting number format command. With this command, you can apply currency symbols to your numbers. If you click the dollar sign, it will add the American dollar to all the figures in our table. If you click the arrow next to the dollar sign, a list of some common currencies will appear, and then if you click more accounting formats, you can find even more currency symbols. If we click euro, the figures will change to the euro in our budget table. But let's click undo and we'll stick with the American dollar sign for now. Before we proceed, let's remove the decimal places from our numbers. They're all rounded to the dollar, so we don't need them. So we're going to go back up to the number group and access this command here, the decrease decimal command. If we click it once, it will remove one of the decimal places. To remove it entirely, we're going to have to click one more time. Notice to the left there's an increase decimal command. So if you wanted to add decimal places, you could do that as well. Let's now create a simple border around our budget table. So first, we're going to highlight all the cells from C5 to cell K11. So everything except the word budget. Then we're going to go up here to the font group. There's a small command that looks sort of like a window. That's the bottom border command. It will add a border at the bottom of our budget, but we want the border entirely around it. So we want to click the arrow next to that and then choose the option thick box border. So we'll click that, and then if I unhighlight all the cells, you'll see we now have a simple border around our budget table. Printing from Excel can be challenging, and you'll see what I mean momentarily. With a small budget table like this, most likely you would want to simply print it on a single page. So now let's access the print command by clicking the green file tab at the upper left. Let's click print from the menu on the left and now look to the right for our print preview. You'll notice that our budget table only goes as far as March. That's because we're only looking at the first page. If you look here on the bottom, you'll see that we're looking at page 1 of 2. And if you click the arrow next to the 2, you'll see page 2. We now need to look at our print settings on the left so that we can adjust our print job so that it'll print on one page. Let's go back to page 1 first. And our first option would be to try to change the orientation. Right now we are at portrait orientation. So let's change from portrait to landscape. That looks better. You can see most of the budget table, but we still can't see our category totals at the end. We could change our paper size and the margins, but we don't want to. We would like to print our budget table on an 8.5 by 11 size sheet of paper, and we don't want to change the margins. So let's try this command at the very bottom that reads no scaling. Let's click the arrow, And the second item on the list says fit sheet on one page. Let's click that. Now if you look at the print preview, you'll see that we have set it up so that our budget will print on one sheet of paper. When you're ready to print, click the print button here at the upper left. One thing you may have noticed about our print preview is that it does not include the grid lines and it does not include the columns or rows. You can print those if you wish, and here's how we do it. Let's go back to our document by clicking the arrow here on the upper left. Let's now click the Page Layout tab and look here at the center right of our ribbon where it reads Sheet Options. The two options are for grid lines and headings, and each option has a view and a print option. You'll notice view is checked for both, however print is not. So if you want to print your grid lines and headings, you need to check each one. And now if we go back to File and Print, you'll see that the print preview shows our grid lines and headings. Let's go back to the Page Layout tab by clicking the arrow in the upper left. From there, we'll go back to Sheet Options. What happens if you uncheck View under grid lines and under headings? If we look back down here at our document, you'll see that the grid lines and headings are gone. The cells are still there, but we don't have access to our grid lines and headings. So you do have the option to remove those if you wish, although it can be difficult to work that way. So we're going to recheck View under grid lines and we're going to recheck View under headings before we proceed. Before we move on to our next step, let's verify all of the formulas in our budget table using the keyboard shortcut Control tilde. The tilde key is to the left of the number 1 on your keyboard. After we select Control tilde, our budget table will change in appearance. Instead of showing the monthly totals and the category totals, what we now see are all of the formulas that we use in our budget table in order to get those totals. This way we can look at all of them next to each other, and that will make it easy for us to analyze and to compare them and to check for any errors or inconsistencies. And then when we are ready to go back to the normal view, we simply hit Control tilde again. We are now going to create a simple chart using the figures in our budget table. The first thing we need to do is to select the information from our budget table that we want to use for the chart. So we're going to highlight from cell C5 through to cell K9. So we're selecting all the elements in our budget table except for the monthly totals. The next thing we're going to do is to click the Insert tab. And then if you look here in the middle of the ribbon, we have a group called Charts, and that's where we're going to select a chart. You will notice the chart group contains many different types of charts: a column chart, here's a line chart, an insert area chart. But what we're going to do is to select the small arrow in the lower right of the group called See All Charts. When we click that, a window will open which reads Insert Chart, and it has two tabs: Recommended Charts and All Charts. Let's select All Charts. Now if we look here on the left, you can see all the different styles of charts that we have available. We're going to choose Line Chart. After doing so, you'll notice on the upper right, we have different styles of line charts. For example, line, stacked line, and so on. we're going to choose the fourth option, which is called line with markers. So we'll click that once, and then if you look in the lower right, we have 3 different styles of line with markers charts. Let's select the first line with markers chart, the one highlighted in blue. So we'll click the OK button in the lower right, and that will insert our chart. Unfortunately, in our case, the chart has inserted directly over the budget table. Fortunately, it's fairly easy to move our chart elsewhere in the document. But first, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit to give us more room. And now to move the chart, you need to be careful because the chart is made of different elements. For example, there's a title. Here's like the main plot area, if you will. There's a legend below. So you don't want to click on any of those separate elements or else you'll just move that element. So what you want to do is try to find a blank area of the chart, like here where it reads chart area. Then we can click and hold. We can then easily move our chart to a different location in the document. We also have the option of resizing the chart. So if you notice, there's a bit of an outline around our chart, and the corners and sides have squares, which are known as resize handles. I'm going to use the one here in the lower right. Notice that we now get a double-sided arrow. That means we've activated the resize handle. So to make the chart smaller, we will click and hold and then drag inward, like so. To make the chart larger, we click and hold, but this time we'll go outward, like so. But I'm going to undo to bring it back to its original proportions. So once we've created our chart, we can move it elsewhere in the document, or we can change the size. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can focus on the legend here at the bottom. So you'll notice groceries is orange, mortgage is gray, entertainment is yellow, and you can see the corresponding lines in the main section of the chart. You might also notice that we have this blue entry that doesn't correspond to anything. So why do we have that? The reason for the blue legend entry is because we're looking at row 6. So if we move back up to our budget table, you'll see that everything is highlighted between rows 5 and 9, including row 6, which has no entries whatsoever. So the chart is looking at everything that we have highlighted. So one option would be to remove row 6, and that'll take care of that issue. But on the other hand, we may decide that we want to have a line of separation between the categories and the groceries. So the other option would be to remove the blue element with the chart filters command. If you look at the upper right of the chart, we have 3 commands. The third one is the chart filters command. So if you click that once and then look under series, this is a list of all the elements in our legend, including the blue bar with nothing attributed to it. So we simply uncheck next to the blue bar, click apply, and then click the chart filters command to remove the list. And then if we look at our chart, you'll see we no longer have that blue bar at the bottom. Now let's make an update to our budget table. We're going to scroll back up and we're going to add categories for the month of July. So we're going to need to add a column between June and category total. And to do so, we can right-click on column K and then select Insert from the list it appears. The next thing we can do then is type JUL for July in K5, or you'll notice the fill handle still works. So we can use that as well. So let's add 120 for July groceries, 1,000 for mortgage, and then 170 for entertainment. And now we want to store sum total for July, but instead of doing auto sum, the fill handle will work here as well. So I'm going to grab the fill handle by June and drag it over 1 month. And now that gives us our sum total for the month of July. You will notice the category total will change after we add the month of July. And if we go down and look at our chart, you will see we have added the month of July here as well. Now let's make another change in our budget table. Suppose we forgot about a $3,000 grocery expense that we had in May. So we're going to click cell I7 and type 3,000 and then hit enter. So again, you'll see that our category total adjusts to the change, and so does the chart. So whenever we make a change in any of our cells, everything else will adjust elsewhere as well. The last thing we're going to do to our budget will be to add a background. Suppose you had a corporate logo or something of that sort that you wish to add to the document. To do so, we'll select the Page Layout tab, and then the Background command, and then we have these 3 places from which we can insert a picture. Ours is located on the desktop, so we'll select from a file, and then we're going to select this file here, Excel 1 logo picture. We'll click that and select Insert. And now we've added a background to our Excel document. The background will not print in Excel, but you could use it if you wish to share it digitally or if you wish to post it to a website. With that, that is all the time we have for the abridged version of Excel Part 1, brought to you by the Ela Area Public Library. Stay tuned for more recorded classes. Thank you.